Okay, there we go. We are live. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Trina Johnson. I'm the co-founder of Amazing Speaks, which is an international speaker training, professional development, and coaching company. And tonight we have the privilege, yay, of hearing from Lynn DelGaudio. Lynn is going to talk to us about what are you thinking. She is an expert in the brain and some neuroscience kind of stuff, and I can't wait to hear what she has to tell us. So, Lynn, take it away. It's up to you.
All right. Thank you, Trina. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you're on the call today. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes, as Trina mentioned. So I'm an integrative health and mindset coach. And I help individuals and businesses alike really find the creator, the leader within to really impact change. Now, Trina, this is the first time I'm talking like this, so I don't know where I'm supposed to look. Am I looking right at you?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yep.
So I have one question for you guys tonight, and that is, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Really, what were you thinking Friday morning when you woke up to go to work? Oh, I don't want to get up. Oh, God, I'm so glad this week is over. What am I going to eat? What were you thinking this morning when you woke up? Oh, God, I don't want to go to work. I've got that call. I'm not prepared. I'm not at all prepared. Oh, my God, what am I going to wear? And how many minutes or seconds, for that matter, lapsed between the time that you hit or swiped your alarm and then picked up your phone to start checking social media, Twitter, WhatsApp, text messages, Instagram, Facebook? Oh no, Elizabeth's eating carbs again. She's making weight. Really, Trina? Another European vacation? Oh, give me a break. My life sucks. Wait, what? I can't believe nobody liked my post. That was a funny post. Maybe it wasn't that. I guess I'm not that funny. I'm boring. Yeah, nobody likes me. And what were you thinking when you turned on the TV and you saw another mass shooting and another natural disaster? Government. Not that government's a natural disaster, but, well, stock market plummeting. What were you thinking? Oh, we're so screwed. And when you got in the car and got into traffic to go to work, what were you thinking? Oh, my ex or my husband is such a pain. Or, stop texting and driving, you expletive. And now you get to work and you sit in the same seat and you turn the same computer and you see the same people and you drink the same watered down coffee. You go back to your computer and you sit down and you say, my job stinks. But it's not your job that stinks. It's your thinking. So as a health coach, I get a lot of people say, I just want to be the best version of me that I can be. And, I get it. I think that's what kind of we all want, right? And I think we can all agree that the way we think impacts how we feel. And we can probably all gather around the idea that, yeah, we have some control over what we think. So then how many of us wake up every day and say, I'm going to use this awesome power of deliberate thinking to create a new reality today. What am I going to create? This is going to be awesome. Or how many of us every night before we go to bed set very clear intentions of what we want to accomplish in the next day or 2 days or whenever? Probably not many. So, we live in such a physically focused world. We get sick, we go to the doctor. We get a cavity, we go to the dentist. We get dirty, we take a shower. We go to the gym so we can be strong. We hopefully eat well. We pay so much attention to our physical form, our physical comfort, our physical appearance, our physical performance, our physical well-being. But how often do we think about what we're thinking about? Right? So if we want to create this new version, this best version of ourselves that we can be, how are we supposed to expect a new version when we keep repeating the same thoughts and behaviors and patterns day in and day out every single day. So depending on what neuroscientists you listen to, we have between 70,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. And the issue is that 95% of them are negative. So if we have so many thoughts, and so many negative thoughts in a given day, like, why aren't we aware of these, right? Well, they're in the subconscious. But, I'll guarantee you, if these thoughts, when we think of them, appeared on our clothing, I'm not smart enough. We would be tearing those things off as soon as they appeared. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. It will never happen. I can't do it. But yet we have these, we're cloaked in these thoughts every day, each and every one of us. So it's almost like, when you learn to drive a car, and at first you don't really have to you have to think about it. You got to figure out when to put the key in, when to look over your rear or look in the camera now. And there's a whole process that your brain learns, but over time it becomes pretty automatic. And that's kind of how these thoughts are operating, like an operating system or app in the background. We're on autopilot. So our thoughts are running us and not the other way around. So people sometimes say to me, I feel like there's something missing. It's like, I feel like I'm not the person that I came here to be. Like there's this separation, this tug. And I know that a lot of us have felt that, some from an early age. Like there's this tug of who we're becoming in this world and what that essence of our true spirit is. And there's like, it becomes this gap. So I say, yeah, there is something missing. It's you. Because over time, and our thoughts create our behaviors that create our attitudes that shape our personality. And so over the years, we become this personality that we tell ourselves we are. That may not be the essence of who we truly came here to be. But another thing about our thoughts, so every time we have a thought, there's a chemical, biological, hormonal response in the brain and the body. So when we have a happy thought, a positive thought, say we're holding a puppy, our brain releases like dopamine and oxytocin into the body, and we have this really good feeling in the body, and the body's like, ooh, I feel good. And the body sends a signal back to the brain, and the brain's like, everything's good, awesome. That's it, end of story. But when we have negative thinking, and there's one thing to have like a negative or stressful response to something, right? Like somebody cuts you off in traffic and you get mad and maybe you flip on the bird and you're over it. And that's healthy and that's normal. But 60 to 70% of us live in a chronic elevated state of stress. And not hard to believe, like, since in recent history, everything is breaking news, high alert, and we just all overstimulated. And when we're in that, so when we have these negative thoughts or stressful thoughts and patterns, very different chemicals are released in the brain. Like we know cortisol, that's the big one. So the brain sends a message into the body, and the body's like, it gets this feeling, this sensation, this tension. It's just, ooh, this doesn't feel good, and sends a signal back to the brain, and the brain's like, oh, anxiety in the body, more chemicals, and there's this even more redundant feedback loop between brain and body, and that can be damaging because that process can actually downregulate genes that trigger disease. So our thoughts quite literally can make us sick. So, but if that's true, then the question becomes, if our thoughts can make us sick, then can our thoughts make us well? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So this journey kind of began for me in 2014 when I had a 80-pound blunt blow to the head, and I had a traumatic brain and spinal cord injury. And I was just prone, no stimulation for weeks, no phone, no light, no sound, no music, no nothing. It was just me and my thoughts. And my head, I guess, was so sensitive. My body was so ultra sensitive. And when not at first, because I was such mush, but maybe within a week or so, I think, I started to notice whenever I thought of something stressful or negative, I literally felt the pressure in my head, like, and the eye pain and the head pain and the dizziness and the nausea and like as if I was getting reconcussed. And so there was a very simple and quick lesson and decision. So the lesson was, when I think bad thoughts, I feel really bad. I have a very somatic response and I feel awful. When I think good thoughts, I feel pretty good. And so I need to heal my brain. So it was a pretty simple decision. Hey, you know, feeling bad feels bad. I want to feel good. So I'm going to try to keep those thoughts away or replace them or whatever I have to do. And I realized too that I get to pick, I get to select, I get to choose what I think. I get to pick my thoughts. And that was really like an awakening for me. I never thought about that before. I don't have to think, you know, if something stressful came into mind about mounting medical bills, I'm like, you know, put it aside. It's going to work out. Puppy, please, you know? So, so anyway, over time, it was such an empowering process, because I actually and I intuitively developed these tricks and tools, like how to replace my thoughts and how to make it feel good in the body and how to, you know, use repetition and meditation. And the more I practiced, the better I felt. And the better I felt, the more I wanted to practice. And the more I practiced, the more I paid attention. And pretty soon, there was not one day that went by that I didn't want to practice. It felt that good. And I was in like this constant state of bliss eventually, like just this joy. I would walk down the street, like taking my walk, and I'd be like for no reason smiling. And people, I'm sure, were like, she's smiling every damn day. What is her problem? But it just felt that good to, and it took a lot of practice and repetition. Anyway, so there's a guy by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he often says, if you want to, I know you know him, he is, Trina, if you want to create a new reality, you have to create, or a new personal reality, you have to create a new personality. And that's exactly what I had done with myself. And it quite literally, because when you change your thinking, you're changing the circuitry in your brain. And all these negative thoughts and beliefs they're formed by the time, most of them, by the time we're 6 or 7. And they're simply not true. Like, I'm not worthy, I'm not smart enough. But they're based on a false perception of maybe an event or a situation or circumstance. And then they get repeated over time during our lifetime until our brain circuitry is so hardwired, you know. So sometimes when we go to make a change, if we want to make a change, our body will spaz a little bit, and our brain, and it'll be like, yeah, I can wait till tomorrow. I don't really have to do this. I'm going to stay in this place of fear because it feels right. But no. It's because it feels familiar. And it's important to recognize the difference of what feels right and what feels familiar. So, you know, companies spend like billions of dollars every year in these like 3-day leadership retreats. And I always question, like, how are you going to evolve and change the habits of your team and your environment and your culture and your leadership? Like, in a 3-day, it takes more than giving lecture. And they're all well-intentioned. They have a purpose, of course, but there's never any sustainable, lasting change, because I think what they miss in a lot of these trainings is, in order to get that change, you've got to get into the subconscious, and you've got to get, and this is a whole other discussion, but very simply, we're always in a state of like decision-making, high beta brainwave, very high frequency brainwave. And the habits, where we want to change the habits, that they reside in the subconscious. So it's a matter of training people how to get down into the lower frequency, the alpha and the theta brainwaves, and that's where real change takes place. And I'm convinced that my post-injury of a forced meditative state was really what helped me in gaining my awareness and changing a lot of my patterns. But anyway, I have a book coming out in March. I think we've been tweaking the title. I think it's going to be called Altered on Impact, but I'm not sure yet, but I'll keep you guys. It's kind of exactly what happened. But I'll keep you guys in the loop. And you can also catch me on yes2yourhealth.fit. It's all spelled out, yes2yourhealth.fit, which is my primarily coaching website. And I've got a Yes to Your Health Facebook page. But I'm also at LynnDelGaudio.com, which is more for it's LD Consulting, Live Deliberately. So thanks for listening to my spiel, and I will hand it back to Trina. And if you guys have any stories of your own, or if you have any questions, I'd love to hear all of it.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. Yay. I love the title of the book. I think that's fabulous. Yes, that's like perfect. Very good.
Thanks.
All right. So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about the practices that you did to kind of change your brain, can you give us a couple examples of what you were doing?
Sure. So in the very most simplest form, I like to call it my favorite things, because it's, like I simply remember my favorite. I'm not going to change to be there, obviously. So it's literally, if you're having a negative thought, you just go, what's my favorite thing that makes me feel good in my body? Because when you have an elevated emotion about something, the creativity and centers in your brain are like, whoa, what's going on? And that, that can help the change too. That's the most simple example. Then when if ever I was having like a very somatic reaction, now if you've got a body reaction to something, it means that your limiting belief, that belief that's holding you back from being the best you can be, it's gained momentum. It's pretty strong. So you've got to, there's a couple things I do. Like one day, I was so miserable in work, and I'm like, why am I so miserable in work? I'm so happy in every other aspect of my life, which, believe me, every other aspect of my life isn't perfect, but I'm so miserable in my career. So I just did this fill in the blank, and I wrote down work is blank. And I started writing, work is stressful, work is a challenge, work is political, work is this, work is that, all these things. And I'm like, wow, I've been telling myself a really negative story about my job, which is paying me well. I work independently. I have supportive colleagues. My boss is not a micromanager. I get to set my own schedule. What is so bad about it? It's a belief I'd had from years ago when I worked in one of the big accounting firms. And it was unheard of to admit that you had a 40-day work week. You never did that. You worked a minimum of 60 or 80 hours, sometimes over 100. And you wore it on your sleeve like a badge of honor. And it was stressful. And so there are different things like that. Or there's one where, so what? So I was terrified of a deadline. I had all this fear about this deadline. I was like, what about the deadline am I afraid of? I'm not going to meet it. So what? What if you don't meet it? They might not like me. So what? They might fire me. So what? So then I won't have money. So what? So then I won't be able to pay the bills. So what? Then I'll be homeless and I'll be alone and afraid and this primal first chakra, fear of not having my basic needs and then you reality test. Have you ever missed a deadline? No. Have you ever not paid your bills? Maybe, but I figured it out. But no, they're not, most of them are never true. So example, if you say, I can't work out, I don't have time, that's a limiting belief. It's not true. Because I can sit here on my couch and do crunches. It's bull. It's lies, it's BS. But if you say, I can't work out, I broke my femur this morning, different.
Sheree, you want to jump in on that?
Sheree.
Hey, Lynn. So going back to what your so what? What prompted you to even start doing that? What did you read? What made you go there to even start doing that in your life to get to this point?
So I asked myself the same thing, and I think I write about it in the book, because I'm like, I intuitively figured this out. And it wasn't until 2 years after the injury where I found out who Dr. Joe Dispenza was. And he was explaining all the neuroscience behind why what I was doing was working. Like when I stopped the negative thought, when I first recognized it, I didn't realize I was shortening the refractory period. That is the period between from the time the thought occurs until the time you shut it off. And that's the stress response. Essentially, that's the stress response. But I don't know. So it wasn't my forced meditative state that helped me, just because they're very simple techniques. And I don't think that thinking of a positive thought when you're having a negative one is any original, that's not my original thought. I'm sure we all could think that up. So I honestly don't know where this came from. I would just, the more I practiced, the more I like wanted to practice, and the more exercises I just would come up with. And like Abraham Hicks has these rampages of appreciation, she calls it, and she just talks and talks and talks and talks. And it's almost like she's feeling, I talk about this in the book, like language, we pull from language, you and I've talked about this, Sheree, to convey energy, really, right? Because we select words that want to convey a certain energy. It's like when people channel, that's kind of how they do that. But I was listening to her one day and I was like, wouldn't it be fun just to do a rampage of appreciation? I call it alphabet soup, from A to Z. You just like, I thank the universe first for appreciating, bestowing upon me, creating for me, developing, you know, and on and on. I do everything in the alphabet, and then I do it in Spanish, and I get tripped up on.
There you go.
I get tripped up on Z and X, but so I don't know where they came from. It was just kind of fun, and then I would create more and more and more.
Good stuff. And so this came 2 years after.
No. The exercises they were immediate, like, because whenever I had a negative thought or some stress enter my head, I could feel it. So I was getting reconcussed, I felt like, all the time. So I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to stay positive in this state. So I started real simple. And then over time, and it was a challenge. And like, if you read the book, because I was in pain for, I mean, like tormented, wounded animal, electrocuted, you know, every 20 seconds kind of pain for 18 months. And so there were times where I would fall out of practice because the pain was too great. But 2 years into the practice is when I was introduced via YouTube to Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this guy's explaining the neuroscience behind all these things I've been doing. I didn't know why they worked. I just knew that they did. And then it was like even more powerful because I'm like, I can, like, this really works, and there's science to prove it. It's not just me saying, here's what happened to me, you know?
Good.
Anyone have any questions? Sandy, what about you? You got anything going on? Oh, I think she dropped off for a moment. El Carice, anything?
Well, funny that this sort of came along. I had been following Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is
Yeah.
neuroscience. I don't know